Hey everybody, welcome back. We are on episode 5. Thank you for tuning in last week. It was a really great episode. We covered a lot of material, a little bit of a story time as well. This week we're going to be diving in a little bit more on some actions that we can take. I feel like a lot of us in sales, if we get asked, what's the biggest what's one of the biggest challenges that we face in sales or to keep a good mindset going, it would definitely be lead generation. Yes, we hate lead generation. We hate the tasks that come with it. Some of you out there are probably like, oh, it's so easy, blah, 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 blah. But we also have to look at conversion and how are we converting these leads? Are we converting them into appointments? And from appointments, are we confirming them to get contract signed? Are we converting them to buy the vehicle? Are we converting them to get the sale of whatever it may be? Now, I've expressed this many times. I'm a mediocre, average type of salesman, and that's what I am. I've never really wanted to be the best. And, if that does happen, if my sales and my background and, my education just keeps growing and I end up being a top producer in whatever industry I end up in, then it happens, but that is not what I am thinking about right now. So lead generation, how are we getting your leads? What kind of sources are we doing? What's your follow-up looking like? How are we converting those leads? So a lot of us in sales, as you may know, if you've been listening, I've had a background at the car dealership. And oh my gosh, picking up that phone and, dialing that number and just trying to, do what the managers are yelling at us about. Get on the phones, make phone calls, start making appointments, bring people in through the door. While you're on your phone, you should be calling your leads, all that stuff. Oh my gosh, I used to hate that so much. I did it for many years. I used to be in BDC where you would have to make, 50 to 100 dials a day, if not more, just depending on your, where you're at as far as which dealership or what company you're working for. I mean, nowadays, I think it's roughly about, I would say 150 to 200 dials a day. For most industries, and that may seem like a lot, but it really isn't. That 150, you could do that within a 4-hour period, right? So how are we getting our leads? What are we doing to attract clients? What are we doing to bring people in front of us over the phone? How are we doing that? There's a few ways that we can do it. Obviously phone call is, I think it's like, I forget what the conversion is on that one, but I think it's like 500 to 1 or something like that. And I'm not saying that it's going to take you 500 calls to, get an appointment. I'm saying 500 calls to at least get you a closed deal, transaction or, car deal or, signing a contract with you, something. Yeah. So it's a little bit bigger, but it's actually a really good conversion rate. Because if you're doing, let's say 150 calls a day, you could essentially do that in 3 days. So in 3 days, 3 or 4 days, you'll eventually have a deal, right? And how much time did you spend? So it may seem like a lot, but it's really not. If you're in a door-to-door business, essentially that's like 100 to 1. And I really appreciate all those door salesmen. Some of us probably getting knocks on the door and we're probably frustrated, right? Like, oh my gosh, what does this person want? All that stuff. But hey, on the other side, I applaud them. They're going out there and they're putting themselves face to face with clients, and they're doing the real grunt work. They're literally doing the grunt work of hustling and bustling and knocking on those doors, getting uncomfortable. So phone calls would be one of them. If you're in a certain business, then door knocking would be, or door to door would be another good source. Obviously, we have a phone. So from the phone, you have access to text, you have access to email, you have access to social media, all good things. Now, I see a lot because I have a real estate Instagram business page. If you haven't followed me, go ahead and follow me. That's cvr.realty. So Cesar Vicente Rocha.realty. CVR. So if you guys didn't understand. And, you can kind of see how many people are viewing your page, what kind of interactions you're getting. So if you need to, if you post on your regular page, I would highly consider turning that into like a business page of whatever you're doing, or just create another page or another Instagram where it's a business page, because you can really see all the analytics. But from there, I see a lot on social media about social marketing, AI marketing. Phone calls are dead. You don't ever have to door knock again. You can get all these great leads. Personally, I think that's a lot of fluff. I think it's a way to apparently make your job and life easier, but then at the same time, you're not doing the things that generally work. Door knocking, phone calls, business to business, all those things. Now, yes, it just depends on what industry you're in. My background, cars. So if you're at the car dealership, you really can't go out and door knock. You really can't, go out business to business and advertise, right? So at the dealership, your CRM's your best friend. You have a giant pool of clients, right? And it only takes one. You get an appointment, you convert it, you do a deal, boom, you're happy. So you have door knocking, phone calls, social media, text, email. You could try to hit all of those. You can go home, you can knock a few doors around your neighborhood and be like, hey, I lived here for so many years. I just want to let you know I work at this, dealership. And, if you ever need something, or if you're ever looking for a vehicle, let me know. That's super easy. And it should be a little bit comfortable, especially if you already know your neighborhood. And, you just give them a few business cards. If you or somebody else let me know. I'll be able to help you guys out. But I feel like there's a little bit of a fear factor when you do that, especially in the car business, because in the car business, you essentially need to make gross, right? That's their plan of attack, is to try to make gross. So I feel like that would have been hard for me to do, at least at my dealership, because number one, every time I have a deal, all right, how's the client? Can we make some money here? What do you think? You've been with them, all that stuff. So, but it's still one way. If you're closing your own deals at your own dealership, I think that's a little bit easier. So that way, you can have that confidence and you can build that trust with them, right? Phone calls, super easy. Your database is there. You can usually go back, depending on the years, depending on how your CRM was built. You can do it by name. You can do it by the vehicle itself. Let's say you have a redesigned vehicle that's coming out or that's already out. Yeah, maybe go back 3 years, maybe go back 4 years. Let them know that you have the newer vehicle, and at least invite them in to come look at it. That's another great opportunity for you. Text messages. You can do video. Take a video of the vehicle itself, and send that out. Be like, hey, you've had your car for 4 years. I wanted to send you this video and show you the newer type of vehicle, and want to invite you in to come and test drive it. So that's another good thing. Social media, same thing. You can create a TikTok, you can create a business page, and just start posting the newer vehicles. There's a lot of people that are doing that now. I see a lot of them. I see a lot of real estate stuff too. I see funny videos. I see home showings. I see, day-to-day real estate life things. There's a niche for everything. And if you do it well, you can really start growing your own little business there, right? It can make things easier for you in the long run. It won't happen right away. A lot of the things that we do now, they'll show, in 30, 60, 90 days, right? So it's a lot of work in the beginning, but after that period, you'll start seeing kind of, the tumbleweed effect. It'll get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it keep rolling and keep rolling and keep rolling. So that's another good thing. So yeah, I think those are some of the great actions that we can take in order to get business. Now, once the clients are, in front of us, or we have that appointment, right? How do we, obviously try to keep that appointment? That would be a proper follow-up. Let's say today's Wednesday, and let's say you have an appointment for Friday. Obviously, confirm everything on Wednesday. Thursday, send them a quick text, send them a quick email. Hey, I'm excited for our appointment on Friday, blah, 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 blah. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and reach me. Friday, depending on what time the appointment is. If it's in the morning, you usually shouldn't have to send another invite, but you can. Or you can try to create like a Google or an Apple invite for your meeting, right? Your appointment, and then that'll be saved on their phone. That's another good idea. If it's later in the day, text them in the morning. Hey, I'm excited to. Again, hey, I just want to confirm our appointment. I'm excited to see you. Some people think like, oh, that's too much. But, if you're coming at a place of helpfulness and, you're just like confirming the appointment itself, I think that'll be a good idea. I used to hate doing that. I would only do it every once in a while, like triple confirm it. But, if they were like a past client or something, usually I'll know that they're going to be coming. And especially if you put everything into your CRM, usually depending on how your CRM's set up, it'll start sending them invite or reminders anyways. So that's another good idea. So now you have the appointment, right? Performance confirmed. They're here in front of you. Now it's all up to you. You have to shine. This is your moment to shine. This is your moment to show your customer service. This is the moment to, show who you are as the salesman, right? Whether it's car business, whether it's real estate, right? You have your appointment, you're going to your listing appointment, you're going to your buyer appointment. It's to really show your value, okay? If it's door to door, you set up your appointment, you come back to do your presentation, or, they're coming to you to, do the presentation. So, it just really depends. So, all really good factors of how to get the appointment, how to, confirm the appointment. At the end, it's really up to you how to, get that appointment, convert into the sale. Now, the biggest thing that a lot of us salesmen or saleswomen hate, follow-up, right? Oh my gosh, now I have to call them and have to be consistent, or you drop the ball and you're like, oh, I was supposed to do A, B, and C, and I forgot. Now they're reaching out to me. They're upset, yada, yada, yada. You have to be good at your follow-up because you need to ask for referrals. You need that, get that review in, right? So whether for your dealership, for Google, or for Yelp, you need to get that review in. And you just, you want to make that connection. You need to make that relationship, right? So you have to keep in contact with them, right? So example would be, car business. Everything's going well. You sell the car. Obviously, every dealership has their, their closing pretty much, right? So the delivery process, right? You show them the car. Maybe you ask for a picture. Hey, I have an Instagram. I would like to at least take a photo. And, hey, is it cool if I tag you in it? Whatever. You're going to get a no. You'll get a yes. Regardless, maybe you get a picture and they're like, okay, well, can I at least get a picture? Is it okay if I post it? I don't have to tag you or whatever. And, you can even show them, just be like, hey, this is what it looks like. This is what I do. It's super, regular, nothing crazy. So that would be definitely one way. I remember at the dealership I was at, they had a company come in, right? And the company, apparently they do really well with all this. Like you take a picture, you take 4 pictures, like 2 pictures of the car, depending on the angle. And then you take 2 pictures of the client, and then you maybe take one of you and the client, right? So then after that, it'll auto generate like a small little video, and they could share that video with their family and friends, all that stuff. It was cool, but it wasn't cool because it was like now a mandatory thing, and there was a lot of pressure to do it because obviously the company's paying for it and yada yada yada. In the car business, there's a lot of like little companies that are like, we have the newest thing, and we can show you the reports of these guys getting blah 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 and blah 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 because they followed the process. I believe it works, but at the same time, it's like you're adding another thing on top of my 4-hour deal already, right? Where now it's like, if they're rushing or if finance took forever, yes, I understand that we have to be strong and like calm them down and hold them there. But it was just like another added thing that we had to do, and it was kind of crazy. So, anyways, so that would be a good little thing there. You can do, picture, get their information. So now you follow them on social media, and they have your information like right then and there. It'll pop up. That's another good thing. Obviously, when you're doing the paperwork and all that stuff, you have their name, you have their address, you have their phone number, all that stuff. Even if it's a different address, you're going to know what address it is. I would just make a note of that, or obviously it's inside your CRM. And one thing that I should have done, and I always thought of doing, but I never did it, was just send them a thank you card, right? Send them a thank you card in the mail, maybe a week after, a couple days after, regular mail. Just give it to your receptionist. Hey, give this to the mailman when he's here. You can get them on Amazon. You can get a box of 100 for like, I don't know, it was like $20 or something like that. And you maybe have to get a postage stamp or something, which you get 100 for like $70. So maybe you're spending $100 for 100 stamps, 100 cards. Honestly, you're only really selling like 200 to 300 cars a year personally. So I mean, go figure. I mean, you're spending $300 on your not business, but you're sending it because you're doing it for your client, you're doing it for referrals, all that stuff. And then before they leave too, just be like, hey, do you guys know anybody who is looking for referrals? And this can go in any type of business, and I'm sure there's businesses out there that do a lot of this stuff, maybe automatically, maybe it's just like something that's built into their their business plan of follow-up, things like that. Real estate's the same thing. A lot of people are like, well, you close the deal, you got to get your client a gift, which I do because I feel like that's just the right thing to do. There's other people that don't, and they still get a ton of business. So it really just depends, Sometimes we, on my last deal, it wasn't a lot of closing costs that we covered, but I was able to get back like $5,000 in closing costs for my client. And, instead of her putting out another $5,000, she didn't have to. So, I mean, that's $5,000. And I still got her a gift, because I feel like that was just, the right thing to do. And so, we have different takes on follow-up. But even if you're starting today, instead of like, oh, I should have started doing that a year ago, that is okay. You know why? Because if you're in the car business, if you're in real estate, you're always going to get newer clients. And you just start from there, If you want to go back to your month in car sales, it's so easy. You just get all your deals from the month, get all the information, right? You can just start sending thank you cards, right? Thank you again for your business. However you want to do it, ChatGPT it. I don't give a shiz, but just do something, right? Be a little bit more proactive, because hey, if they do send you, it's kind of tough to say that, because if you had a client that wasn't really happy or blah 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 blah, yeah, that depends, but you can still do it. Like, who cares? Like, you're showing them a different side of you, that you want to be helpful and everything like that. So that would be another good way to do it. But yeah, follow-up's extremely important. And, phone calls are great. Yes, I get that. But how many phone calls are you really making to that client, right? You're calling them after they signed or bought with you, just making sure everything's going well. Hey, any questions? Obviously call me. Yeah, we all know the whole spiel, right? But at the same time, you want to make a little bit of a difference, right? You send them that thank you card, just put another card in there for you. Just be like, hey, also, if you know anybody that's looking, feel free to pass along my information. I put another card in here for you to hand out. Or give them a few cards. The dealership pays most likely for your cards anyways, right? So who cares? You can do, but there. So the reason why I'm talking about follow up too is because there's a not like a system, but there's a I guess so, like a call system that I use in real estate. It's called like DTD2. It's pretty much like do the database 2, so it's like 2, like TOO, but then it's like a number 2. I don't know, whatever. And it does everything for the whole year. It's 52 weeks. It shows everything on there. It'll give you the last name and the last name. Let's say it's like A, and then the last name of B. So, and then it's like plus O's, right? So that means that you would call everybody that last name starts with an A. You would call everybody's last name that starts with a B, and then you would text all the people with the last names in O's, right? So that would be your first week. And that seems like a lot, especially in the car business. When I was exiting the car business, I was calling a lot of my clients to kind of revisit that situation, make sure they know, this is me. Hey, this is my cell phone number. I'm going to text you my information again, because I knew when I was leaving, I was going to be contacting them again, letting them know I was in real estate now. So, and I still do that to this day. I have a lot of clients that are still having my phone that I reach out to. I thought it was going to be a little bit different personally, because I was like, well, I have like 300 people in my phone from the car dealership. At least a handful of them are going to be doing something real estate related. So, I thought it was going to be a little bit easier. It's kind of not, the follow-up, I still do the follow-up, right? But I'm just saying, I thought it was going to be like, oh yeah, like actually, yes. Or like, oh yes, I'm thinking about doing something like this. And I've had a few of those, and I had really great conversations, but just because you have those doesn't mean that's going to be a guarantee, right? So that would be another way to do it. So I would definitely follow something like that. If you're interested in that like worksheet that I have, it's just like fits like on a landscape 8x11 page, and it's just all like graphed out, and it's just really simple. It just does all 52 weeks every quarter. And then it just does the letters with the other, but that's it. Yeah, it just does the letters like in a row, and that's it. And then when you get down to like the last few weeks of the quarter, it kind of gets a bit easier, because obviously the alphabet has, X, Y, Z, and, how many clients are we going to have with those last names? Well, depending on your area, you might have a lot, but yeah, or sometimes you may not even be able to call them because, different language, something like that. So it does get a little bit easier. So that would be really good. If you need that worksheet, or like I said, if you have questions about follow-up, or if you need to brainstorm some ideas about, what to do for your follow-up, or how to get those referrals, things like that, feel free to message me on Instagram. That's cvr.realty. Or you can also email me, you guys. That'll be crocha. That'll be CROCHA @kw.com. You guys go ahead and reach me out there and let me know all your questions. All right, let's see how much time we have left. So we're doing good on time. We'll close it up in a little bit. So I'm trying to keep this under 30 minutes or so. And we're almost there, about 4 minutes left. So that was a little bit about lead gen. How many different ways we can lead gen. And I know it's a lot. Well, you said we could do email. You said we could do text. You're saying social media. You're saying, we can do like door knocking, all that stuff. It is a lot. It definitely is a lot, and I've done almost every one of them. But you'll find the one that's going to bring you business, right? So if your conversion on phones is really good, then you don't have to do maybe all the other things, right? Or you don't have to do them as much. And unfortunately, maybe you're just like a phone call person. You just never knew, right? Or if it's text, if it's sending, videos of the new vehicle to your past clients, then hey, maybe that's your thing, right? And I personally like text because whatever you send them, they do receive it, and like it's always in their mind, right? And I get a bunch of spam texts too from like companies like, hey, do you have any properties off market, things like that. So, you just got to find the one that's going to work for you, but you have to try it though. And you have to try it for, 30, 60, 90 days, right? Because if you're doing it just for 30, for a month, you don't work every day. You work maybe 22, 24 days out of the week, right? Or out of the month. So that's why you got to do it for maybe 2 months and see how it goes. Especially at the end of the year right now, a lot of places are going to have a lot of incentives, a lot of deals going on. So that's where you're going to be able to shine and, be able to push those promotions and try to attract business, right? Because holidays are coming. We're all going to need money. I think I'm going to cut it off there. Wow, 30 minutes went by so fast. Again, I appreciate everybody that's following me. If you haven't followed me, it's you can find me on YouTube. I'm Blanking Pod. You can find me on TikTok. I'm Blanking Pod. Apple Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio. The podcast is on there, guys. Go ahead and give it a listen. I appreciate it. Have a good one.